So this is great. We will move forward very quickly. We're honored to have, again, with us for a tri-peat, Commissioner of Minnesota Department of Education, Brenda Cassellius, St. Paul Superintendent Valeria Silva, Elementary Schools Principal Executive Director John Millerhagen, and I know he's not sitting in a row, but I assumed we'd know he was who he was, and it wasn't Katy. And then Minnesota 2011 Teacher of the Year, Katy Smith. Thank you very much, and they're going to take us through our lunchtime presentation.
Okay, they said I get to start. Well, I'm so glad to be on the panel with some of my colleagues here who have really been doing the work around early learning, either in the elementary schools or at the superintendent level, or just advocating across the state and working with parents. It's Katy, and so she always has a lot of energy to add to the conversation. And so just really excited to be here with you, and thank you, AMSD, for putting on this really important conference, looking at early learning and what a difference it can make in Minnesota. And it really can make a difference in quite a short amount of time. If we can build that strong foundation and give every kid a great start, I think we'll really have some gap closing and opportunity closing and access closing for our kids of color and our kids who have historically been under served. And so I'm really, really excited for this conversation. I first want to thank my incredible team at the Office of Early Learning, Melvin Carter and Bobby Burnham, and the entire team who's been doing work around our Race to the Top grant, coordinating and helping support work with our Promise neighborhoods in both St. Paul and Minneapolis, as well as working statewide to establish regional support for administering and carrying out our new scholarship investment of $46 million that the state legislature just passed. So we have some great opportunities, especially now that the legislature passed such a strong investment and continued their investment in Head Start, which is fantastic. And I think that now with the new early learning bill federally, I'm actually going to be going and I have a chief meeting until Saturday starting tonight. And we will be discussing these legislative federal policy that's just being introduced, a bipartisan bill for early learning, and really how can we put the pressure on nationally to make sure that this gets done. And so we are now positioned in a great spot because I think at AllDay Kindergarten is going to be a requirement of this federal legislation. You're going to have multiple ways and pathways for students to access early learning, and we have really set ourselves up well to be able to be competitive with this new early learning bill. So kudos to Minnesota for seeing this as such an important piece of our educational program here. Some of you may have seen our NAEP scores that just came out, fourth grade. Minnesota top in the nation for mathematics. Fourth grade black students scoring highest, fourth in the nation in mathematics. This is amazing gap closing that we're seeing for our kids, especially in reading. I want to also credit Carrie Ross, who's here, for her leadership the past 3 years. I know she left us, unfortunately, at the state, but she's still very much engaged in the reading community around our fourth grade literacy and initiative, which really was a bipartisan agreement in 2011, really pushed for $50 million additional dollars to focus on every child reading well by third grade. That was Senator Jen Olson and the governor, who struck a deal and said, we want to be sure to put this focus on third grade literacy, and it's paid off. Our fourth grade students went from 22nd in the nation to 10th. And that is absolutely amazing. And it's to the testament of not only the pre-K work that many of you are doing in your school districts before even 2011, AllDay Kindergarten, that many of you sacrificed and put into your schools, and the effort that you've been doing around an early learning foundation. I can't tell you what a difference this is making for our kids. We will be releasing a school readiness report in a week or so, Bobby, right? that will show that we are really making a difference also with school readiness. That has been kind of a stagnant number of 50% of our kids being school ready. I can't give you the exact number now because we haven't released it, but this is also really tremendous accelerated progress in the early grades, and this foundation is paying off with our fourth graders in not only their reading skills but their math skills, because you have to be a good reader to do well in math and be able to problem solve on those exams as well and apply your learning. So kudos to everybody in this room. It takes an entire community, our partners at Mini Minds pushing on us to be able to get those early learning investments. I just can't say enough about this concerted effort in Minnesota around early learning and just how incredibly important it is. I just want to remind folks too that our overall commitment and investment in education isn't just early learning scholarships of $46 million. We invest in $40 million in Head Start. We invest $80 million in CCAP funding, and we also invest in ECFE and parent training. And so we have, and four-year-old school readiness, four-year-old readiness programs, another $20 million. So we have over a $200 million investment in early learning at the state level, and we can do more. We know we're not meeting enough of the need, and we need to do more, but I think this is a tremendous start. If we can get federal dollars to match, we'll be in a really good spot. So I'm excited about the discussion on the panel. Thank you for having me.
Good. Good afternoon. I'm Valeria Silva, Superintendent St. Paul, and now that I have the microphone and everybody is listening, I wanted to officially thank Brenda, our commissioner, for the work she has done. I've been in education for 28 years. Don't tell anybody, but and I have not seen in Minnesota a commissioner that understands the work we all do and the importance of student achievement. And this is something that Brenda has been doing since she started, and I know her job is harder than many of our jobs combined. And I wanted to thank you, Brenda, because the changes that you have been able to bring to our budget, not only budget, but on different areas in legislation, they would not be here today without your support. Thank you very much. So I'm not, as you would say, sucking up. I'm just really mean.
My friend, though.
I just tell you that I thought I had the hardest job in the state of Minnesota, but I think Brenda has more than that. So then for us in St. Paul, we have been always working towards educating our kids as early as we can. We have had a 4-year-old program for 11 years, and it started from a foundation giving us some money from McKnight, and then the district put in some money to get there. The money that we have invested, some of them has come, or most of them has come from foundations and also from a referendum that we passed 7 years ago, and it was just renewed for that. So our community in St. Paul understand that the needs of the kids, especially our second language learners and our students whose special education and free reduced lunch we have been able to serve them. Not enough. Right now we have 1,400, almost 1,500 in our programs, which is 29% more than we had last year, and we hopefully will be able to increase the next year. So then the fact that the state is providing additional funding for us to provide those services, and what we have found, and I imagine there's going to be questions, and I'm not sure how they're going to do the roll call here. What we have found that our kids enter pre-K and they're not ready, and 91% of our kids are ready to kindergarten when they graduate. That's amazing. It's amazing. And the idea is that when they move to kindergarten, that they don't lose it. So in our district, we're trying to align what goes on in pre-K with kindergarten, and I'm not going to do more of that because I imagine we are going to get some questioning. But the investment, the early investment is very necessary, but you can't just invest in the early and then not change what goes on from kindergarten to third grade, or otherwise you are not going to be able to get those kids reading by third grade.
Thank you very much. My name is Katy Smith. I teach parent education in Winona, Minnesota, so I'm a little tiny bit out of a ballpark, but very humbled and honored for the opportunity to sit on this panel as a practitioner and let policymakers and bosses know how it really rolls out. We're at a really pivotal time in the state of Minnesota, and it feels so great to be a Minnesotan because we have such a reputation about investing in early learning, and we just hit it out of the park. And it feels fantastic. It'll sound like sucking up, and so you can maybe call it that if you'd like, but I was at a national conference with Brenda this summer with all the national state teachers of the year in Minneapolis, and she did a fine presentation, and when she was done, the table talk was this: "You have the coolest commissioner ever." And it's true. It feels wonderful as one teacher, one practitioner in the southeast corner of the state to be able to tweet Brenda and let her know how much I appreciate an editorial, or to keep nudging her forward to have her do more and champion harder and run faster. And I know that she would do the exact same thing for me. So I sit here very grateful at our state's early childhood investment, but I'll tell you, we can do better. Lots of us know that the investment came in lots of different places and didn't hit school districts particularly well. We're still waiting, right, for what that might look like for our little piece of that pumpkin pie, and wondering how it will roll. But I also know, if you were in the session with me, I see it as a really great opportunity to align ourselves with the investment. Instead of waiting for an investment that might come directly to ECFE, for example, how can you interface with Minnesota's investment? What's in that for you? Redesign yourself. Think about who you are and what you can do and how you can offer your skill set to the investment. So AllDay Kindergarten was a really big win. That felt like a World Series win to us in greater Minnesota, and I'm sure for lots of you it felt like a very big win. And in my heart of hearts, most of you will know that I love the idea of preschool scholarships. And for those of you that were in my session, it's a repeat, but I will tell you that I believe even stronger about compounding that investment with some parent education that goes along with it. I will pause now while you clap. It is one thing to take a child out of their home and out of poverty and give them an experience for 20 to 40 hours a week, but when you educate that parent, you change a culture of school and of home. I won't ask you to clap again. You can hold your applause till I'm done. All right. I love the thought of that combo platter, and as a parent educator, I like to think about how can I align myself with those dollars. Minnesota, I will tell you this, and I will tell you because I know it's true. Minnesota is more than ready for a strength-based parent education, universal, through third grade at least. All you need to do is walk through the bookstore at Barnes & Noble and look at how extensive that section is. My grandma had one option, Dr. Spock's, right? And now parents are hungry for information that will help me raise my child well. There's a whole lot of reasons behind that, but they are very, very ready for a strength-based parent education program and very ready to come into schools and make it feel like part of their community. There's a skill set that happens in homes that correlates to the academic success of a child. We all know that. Even parents know that. And it's time for us to understand that when parents know better, they will do better. And it's up to us to teach them the skill sets that they need. A large portion of Minnesota preschoolers are in home-based and center-based care. And nobody's there. And we need to get there. I'm concerned about that population when we take a look at readiness and coming into kindergarten. School districts are a rich resource to those folks who are rolling out Parent Aware. 2 or 4 parent ed units devoted to providing literacy experiences and supports for provider is a really great investment and a really great use of your parent educators in your district. Last night I trained 46 providers at Central Lutheran Church from 6 to 8 at night. because the church was willing to have us, and it was an easy fit for me. I don't have to travel with a parent or an early childhood educator. I can go solo and get that stuff done. And so they had their first TARF that was Parent Aware approved, and we all did a little happy dance about that. And so if that language is new to you, it's stuff you'll need to get used to. I have a meeting with New Horizons because I'd love to see those folks who will benefit from the preschool scholarships also benefit from having a relationship with their district's parent education program and their early childhood program. We are a rich resource for them. And something that might terrify someone at New Horizons to come in and do a talk on literacy is a walk in the park for most of us that do the work. I would love to see parent ed at least through grade 3. We spend the first 5 years of a child's life and a parent's life with that child building a relationship. I would love nothing more than to walk them along the journey to have their child reading well by 3rd grade. And if that means I work an extra night in a 1st grade classroom doing a literacy fair with parents, then so be it. There is a way that the work we do in early childhood bridges the achievement gap, and I know it's true. I also like to offer you that parent education needs to feel like a hug from Minnesota, not a finger wagging in your face. And so most of us know how to deliver that, or if we didn't, people wouldn't show up. And they show up again and again, week after week, year after year. And so we know how to do this. I also think that it's time for me to say a hard thing. It's time to come to terms with the fact that the working population that will deal with a lot of these children are at times as educated and experienced as your high school math teacher, but not paid as well. The providers, the providers sometimes are just above the poverty line themselves. Lots of Head Start workers are working at Chapco on the weekends as well. There's pay inequity in early childhood. And so what you're asking for is quality early childhood teachers. And so we need to treat them like the consummate professionals that they are. That felt hard, was it? Oh, okay, I was nervous about it, but it's true. All right, I am the most excited parent educator in the state, waiting and work. I really am. It's like we have been waiting for this time for so long, right? Doing the work that we do in strip malls, out of buckets in our trunk, out of classrooms in churches, just pulling it together, thinking, man, we're doing great work. And finally now, it's not that the boat is at shore, but I can see it with binoculars. I mean, I can see it. But I want us all to be ready. And so one of the things I will champion until people tell me to stop is to build the capacity of the workforce that works with this population that we all so desperately want to serve. So early childhood matters. I had to take advantage of Brenda being at this table. You knew I did. This is prime real estate, right? So I thank you very, very much for the opportunity.
I'm John Millerhagen. I'm, for 5 months now, the executive director of the Minnesota Elementary School Principals Association. Before that, I've almost had 20 years of principalship, most of that in Bloomington. I've worked with Tom Holton, my friends in Bloomington, and have really focused on the kinder prep model and the in-school 4-year-old programs. And I'm really excited about all of what Katy has said because she resonates so well with a program that we have we called it originally Washburn Family Academy, and it's really focusing on what I called parent learning how to do school and understand school and to support their children so that their children can do as well. Washburn is in the heart of Bloomington. It's about 450 to 500 student school over the last 16 years, and it's about 63% poverty. About 150 of those students are EL students, and one of the things that we've struggled with, as many schools in Minnesota have struggled with, is the depth of poverty and the intensity around EL has really caused us to focus strongly on what are our best options to serve children so that we can have success. We've been a Title I school during that entire time, and about 7 years ago, Tom and I talked, and we kept talking about what are we going to do, what can we do. I've always been excited about kindergarten first and early learning. He opened up my eyes to that program, and we really came to a place where what could we do? And this is the one thing I'll share with you. All of us, or many of us in this room, are interested in this early learning work. And one of the biggest frustrations is, how in the world do you fund it? How am I going to get a 4-year-old program in my building so that I can serve a group of children with a good quality instruction that I know is going to get results? And Tom came to the table with a lot of opportunities, the foundations, the grants. You heard him earlier say 12 different funding sources. I did some assessment in my school on how we were using our Title I money, and I decided to focus on Title I money early. And I speculated that instead of spending money each year for title services for some children, if I took a little bit of that money and invested it early, that I would get the result. Because I believed in what Art Rolnick and all of you guys have been saying about early learning. And we did it, and it really has paid off in a huge way for us. So the other part of what I would share with you is this work is going on all across Minnesota. We have brave and courageous men and women, principals in schools that are trying to do some sort of work like this and give support to early learning teachers and to pre-K through 3, 4, and 5-year teachers to help get this achievement gap closed and to make sure that kids read by 3rd grade. And then our version, my additional version to that is love to read by 4th, read to learn by 5th. And I believe, and we've had conversations around a belief, that if a child has the self-confidence and the experiences to independently read strongly by 5th or 6th grade, and we see lots of children read these 500- and 600-page books, these the Potters and the Hunger Games, and all these books that the children read. If a child can do that by 5th or 6th grade, regardless of whether they come from poverty, regardless of their background or their experience or their cultural strengths or limitations, if they can do that themselves at that age, they can change their own stars and they can move through the rest of our system in a really, really strong way. So that's the short version of our entire experience. I really am here to represent principals and to share with you that good results in schools come from good, strong leadership from people in schools and great work from teachers. And so good collaborative experiences generate that. Currently, I'm going to share that the elementary principals love Brenda too. She's been wonderful. So I'll get that one taken care of. But we most of all love the department also. And Bobby Burnham and I met shortly after Tom and I started talking about early learning. Bobby and I met on a Reading First opportunity. And so we were able to get some funding for a Reading First program in our school. And we have infused literacy throughout our school. I hope you don't flinch too much because it sounds like a lot, but the investment is getting a major return. And we put in about $80,000 in leveled readers one year, and a few years later we were able to get some more. We put $60,000 into libraries in our building, into classroom libraries. And so when you invest in the right materials and the right work, it'll come back to you. And the work that we're doing with the department, we're looking at training and opportunities for professional development with the department around principals having the skills they need to lead buildings that are doing the early learning work, both kindergarten and 4-year-old programs. And that is going super well, and I'm very excited about what the future holds for that. So that's all I'm going to say at this point, and if you have other questions, we'll be able to answer whatever you'd like.
Then what's next?
Well, we had a card with a couple questions, so I'll start while you all are thinking. One is how long is the K funding available?
The K.
I'm assuming K meaning kindergarten.
How long?
Yes.
Forever. I mean, until the I can't see the legislature moving backwards off of that
Okay.
now. I mean, I think what's really interesting is that we're really seeing a birth to 20 framework emerging for Minnesota. I mean, a real aligned birth to 20 framework, and the recognition that you have to start earlier and you can't just let them go at 18. So I was here last week talking about the other end of the spectrum, really our older kids, and looking at aligning. I was here with Dr. Rosenstone and Commissioner Pogelmiller, and we were discussing really the other end, but it all starts here. It all starts in pre-K, and it really starts at birth, and how we support our parents, how we support our families, how we get them engaged, and how we get kids ready for a great first start so that then they can be successful on the other end and graduate high school on time and ready, as well as find some blended programming. We have our kids, and I put this challenge out to superintendents and board members last week. We have our kids up until age 21 in our districts. We are funded for students to age 21. But what we do is let them go at 18. I've challenged people to think differently about that. They're still ours. We're still responsible for them until they have a certificate, a credential, or a good job. And so we should continue as the main education entity responsible in K-12 for children to reach backward to birth and reach forward with our partners in community colleges and technical colleges and post-secondary institutions to ensure that every single one, and across the nation, great charter schools do this. They actually have counselors who follow kids into achieve Win Wallen's program, Win Wallen Scholars. They have mentors in which they put they go into the colleges and help kids and mentor them, because it's that navigation of post-secondary. So it's all along the whole continuum from birth until 12, giving kids not only the academic skills, but those social, emotional, and persistence and grit skills on how to navigate a very complex system every step of the way. So to answer your question, kindergarten funding, I think, is there to stay now that we have it, and school districts will receive it next year.
There's another question, so I'll keep going until someone raises their hand, I guess. Is it true that if a district offered half-day kindergarten, they would not be able to receive the all-day funding?
That is true. You have to offer, it's optional for schools at the school level to offer all-day kindergarten, and so you don't have to offer it, but for those students who do go to an all-day program, it is funded by the state.
Will the 850 hours remain, or will that be expanded? I'm assuming that has.
These are all policy questions. You know, I think it's currently 850, isn't it, Bobby? So I think that's the requirement for the all-day funding.
So, as a district who has had a full-day kindergarten for 8 years for everybody, this is what you're going to confront yourself in the next few months. There's going to be a group of parents who are going to be very concerned about sending the little guy or girl to school full day, and that's something that it's not mandatory the full day. So then, as a system, you need to be prepared for that. We have in few schools. For us, it's in certain schools that we've seen that, and we have provided the opportunity for the parents who want the child to go back home at noon and to do that. And we prepare our kindergarten into 2 sessions, kind of like this. And then you do the first part, and then there's a break, typical lunch and whatever, and then we do the second part. With the years, less and less parents have been requesting the full day kindergarten. But be ready, because it's not a battle. It's not a battle to fight, and because first of all, is their right, but you will find that year after year they're going to see that the kids are missing whatever went off in the afternoon or in the morning, and they're going to choose to bring their kids full time. But it's interesting how quickly it has declined from us in St. Paul. I think last year I had 4 parents. It felt like 40 or 40,000, but because they bombarded with emails and letters, but there were only 4 parents that were concerned. And at the end of the day, we give them the option to remove the kid in the middle of the day, and none of them used that because they felt their kid would be missing the afternoon. And so then, with that in mind, prepare yourself for that.
One more question on this card was, are there additional outcomes / cognitive expectations that come with funding?
The only state legislation now that is required for outcomes and accountability is through our World's Best Workforce language, and there are pre-K readiness outcomes that school districts will set with their communities and with their stakeholders. And so it is required through our World Best Workforce language to have pre-K readiness or kindergarten readiness, third grade literacy outcomes, high school graduation outcomes, closure of achievement gaps in both math and reading, as well as career and college readiness outcomes. And so that's new legislation that was just passed, but those are locally defined.
Another piece with the expansion of full-day kindergarten, what we found in the first few years was that the curriculum that was taught in the morning, what it happened is it was kind of expanded to the whole day. So it was more time for napping and play and all those things. I'll tell you that it was very difficult to get some of the kindergarten teachers to understand that, yes, kids have the stamina to stay awake all day and do the work. So we do not have napping in kindergarten at all. And that's going to be your biggest fight, because you're so used to do something that trying to absorb different things. But don't waste your dollars in expanding to a full day if you're not going to add more rigor and more expectations for the kids, because otherwise the only ones who we're cheating are the kids. And please be prepared for that. St. Paul we open in our doors to any of you who want it, not all at once, but to visit and see. I got Lisa here, that it's our early childhood queen, and without her we wouldn't be able to do it. So we have curriculum, we have studies, we have data. If you need any of that, please ask, because you're going to have to convince many of your kindergarten teachers that yes, it is a full day, and yes, you do have to teach more, and that's hard. They have to play, yes, but it has to be structural play.
Thanks. So this is kind of for the whole panel, but it is based on the Parent Involvement Statute, the Minnesota statute. And we heard wonderful things from Ms. Smith in her presentation around the critical conversation around parents being involved in this process. And it's a hard thing to talk about. Yes, it's you sound like you're in a lot of homes and getting out to folks, but how do we put some real meat and push behind the parent engagement statute? So it's coming from the state, so we're seeing from our leaders that this is an incredibly important topic, and that it needs to be something that is put at the front as much as early education, pre-K 3 for parents also.
Katy, do you want to answer?
I think it's yours. I think it's a policy. Do you? So what is, just do your question in one sentence for me.
Using the policy to get your work done.
The policy that just rolled out, right?
Well, it's not a new policy, but the state statute that requires districts to do parent engagement aligned to curriculum and aligned to the work, so they're engaged with their child's education.
So how do we do that?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, come and read. Oh no, she could though. Come and repeat your question. Yeah, because I'm still chewing it myself. So.
Use the state statute
Yes.
to get the work done that you presented in your earlier session. That's critical that parents are involved, especially pre-K 3, but all the way through.
Right. And so the way I dream about that is to have parent educators in our districts work really closely with kindergarten, first and second and third grade teachers to align parent education. You know, rather than asking them to create that pathway, ask your parent educators who are really ready and willing to do that, to help do that. I mean, it's a way to bridge the programs, because that's what we know and that's what we can do. And so it doesn't sound, do you teach parent ed too? Okay, so it doesn't sound daunting at all for those of us that do the work. And actually, for those of us that do the work, we will tell you that parents show up for that. Yes, be here because she's wondering. She's on the school board. So this isn't tough for people who do this work. It really isn't. So if you need to know, it looks different, I think, in different schools. It's we have a program in Winona with 4 parents. They come in 4 times a year. It's like a parent academy. You'll find lots of different names for it all over the state. But if that's a struggle for your early grade teachers, ask your parent educators to help. You do that.
We at Washburn and in Bloomington, we started a program at Washburn called Washburn Family Academy. And then it's rolled out now to the rest of the district with some just district support to make it happen. But really the intention was, and for me, I have some bias against the words parent involvement or parent engagement because of the limitations that Katy talked about in her presentation. It has more to do with parent learning or parent education. So, there was a time when we thought if we had a meeting with our Spanish-speaking parents once a year and we'd bring some people in to translate, we thought we were big stuff. And it's just not what it's about. It's so much more than that. So currently, there's 8 or 9 sessions a year, and then those sessions are developed and designed. And each year there's a little bit of difference. We have a family coordinator, staffed person that communicates with the parents and follows up on RSVPs and those sorts of things, keeps them informed. And then a part of it that we did was we had our intervention, our PBIS, and our RTI staff members help design the lessons that were involved in those evenings. And the evenings were usually about 2.5 to 3 hours. We started with a meal, did a presentation, broke the groups into separate sessions, and then did our content, and then came back, made a craft, and then send them home. And usually had people go home with something. So, that evolves as it goes. Some years there was political things and public things that people needed to know and wanted to know about. A part of that process, currently I think I just heard, because I'm not there now, but the last Family Academy this last month had an attendance between 100 and 150 people. When I was there, 40 would be low, 80 would be high. But we were really straightforward with parents, and we said, this is what we're here to offer. Your child is at grade level, or they're not at grade level, or they need help with this, and this. Come to our meeting. This is what we'll teach you how to do with them. And we're really straightforward with the expectation around the parents having buy-in to supporting their child and their child's learning. And again, as with all of these programs in all schools, they begin at a certain point and they grow and they're fluid and they improve, and it has a lot to do with the quality of people that you are able to have lead them. And sometimes there's some bumps in the road with that. We've been very fortunate to have exceptional people in those positions.
So, and first of all, the advice I would give is make sure that the parent involvement activity or meetings is culturally relevant to the families. And you definitely said speaking Spanish, it doesn't mean that the parents are going to get it. And none of all of us understand the different cultures of our students. And in St. Paul, what we have done is we created something that's called Parent Academy. It's a 9-week session of almost 3.5 hours. And we do not have parent educators, I'm sorry, but we have members of the community that learn the curriculum. So we took the curriculum and we adapted for the Latino families, we adapted for the Hmong, not only in the language, but in the examples. And then we hired people who represented that cultures to teach the curriculum. So they are real parents who have real issues, and some of them have taken the Parent Academy 2 or 3 times because they want to be one of the people who are presenting. And we have over 1,000 parents trained, and we have an amazing thing at the end, and it's in our web if you want it in a video, is we have a parent graduation. So then twice a year, we graduate cap and gown, the parents that they go through the Parent Academy. And you cannot believe how the younger kids sit in the back without the parents there. They're sitting with balloons, with flowers. The parents are crying because many of them never graduated themselves from high school. So then, or they're coming from another country and they have seen what graduation means with the cap and gown. And it is, to me, it's music to my ears. It's what it keeps me going. When you see the parents and the kids seeing that graduation happens to their parents and it can't happen to them. So then be very careful about how you use one model fits all, because it doesn't. And you can almost push away your parents if you do it in the traditional dominant culture white.
That's very true.
I think that's very good advice, and this is the practical advice, and this is really Minnesota is a locally controlled state, and these are decisions that are made at the district level, and the best advice I can give is that leadership matters. And where you put your money is where your heart is, and there's very little money dedicated to parent education or parent learning or parent anything in school districts, because we're so busy and we've been 10 years of cuts just trying to provide basic programming. Well, now there's a little wiggle room, not as much. I know we're still at 2003 funding levels. However, if parent education is something that's important and you see of a value in your district, I would suggest really working on your initiatives and getting a strategic group of parents of many different cultures together to really look at first your ECFE. How many parents of color, poor parents, are accessing your ECFE? And is that effort getting to the parents that need it the most? That right there is just low-hanging fruit. Secondly, looking at your parent advisories and getting a handle on what schools you have and what is your PTA, your PTOs, your parent volunteerism, what does it look like, and just do a survey in your elementary schools and in your secondary schools, and what's the involvement, and get your principals engaged in looking at what's the picture look like, and then decide where you want your effort. And it's going to look different at your ECFE and preschool programming and your kindergarten programming than it does at your middle and secondary programming. And so I just really strongly suggest that you do an inventory, you look at it, and you decide what your strategic direction will be and where your effort wants to be, and then you have to put money on it.
Thank you very much. We're going to wrap up here. So we want to thank our presenters for our luncheon portion for...
Before you all go, and we are in the technology era, you need to follow me on Twitter, because I'm still competing with the Superintendent Minneapolis. And it's _Silva, SILVA. So I want all of you, as a pay for this information, to follow me on Twitter.
At B. Cassellius. I'll be in
At
competition with
AMSD.MN.
I will lose if I compete with her.
No.
Well, that's a great segue, because I'm going to announce the winner of the third social media contest, and it is Patty Phillips. Who tweeted a picture of co-presenters from North St. Paul and Columbia Heights with "We are lots alike," and loved Katy Smith, quotes, "Parent education needs to feel like a hug, not a finger wagging."
That's a good one.
So I have your card wherever you are. A couple more things. For those of you that need continuing ed credits, they're on your way out. You'll also be getting they're on the table back there. You'll also be getting a follow-up email, just a survey on how we did. We really would appreciate it if you took advantage of that and let us know how we did so we can make improvements. All the information's on the website, and you can share it with your district. You can review it yourself if you want to. And other than that, from a chronic introvert,